Hi, my name is Katie Atterbeck. I am the lead healer and founder of Elevated Aura, and I wanted to invite you to just kind of explore this idea of the victim mentality mindset with me for just a couple of minutes, because it's something I've really been thinking about a lot on my healing journey. And in truth, the first time I heard someone on my healing journey say that I had chosen this whole experience intentionally and incarnated so that I would have specific parents that would trigger me in specific ways so that I would wake up and become the person that I had always was always meant to be. I thought these people were crazy. Not only did I think that they were crazy, I thought they were like, I don't know what kind of drug that they had taken, but I really thought that they were so far removed from experiencing any sort of trauma, any sort of heartache, any sort of disappointment or hurt in life that they could adopt this mentality. And it really made me angry to hear somebody say, like that you chose this and that everything was happening as it was meant to be and that we're all interconnected and that blah, 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 blah. But now I'm sitting here and I'm trying to find the right way to say all of this because there is a part of me that still isn't fully ready to let go of this idea of healing and what happened to me. But at the same time, in my life, I have never been more convinced that everything that happened to me was supposed to happen to me. And even beyond that, I can't imagine not being the woman that I am today, the wife that I am today, the mother that I am today, the healer that I am today without all of these life events. Now, on my spiritual journey, I started reading more and more about reparenting and the whole process of like pregnancy and having a baby, because so much of our trauma and our hurt, especially for women, is generational. And that's because when your mother was born, and this is true for men and women, when your mother was born, she was born with every single egg in her ovaries that she would ever have, meaning that when your mom was in your grandma's womb, you were an egg. You were already created in there. Meaning, when your grandma was pregnant with your mom and you were just an egg inside your mom, inside your grandma's womb, all three of you were one at one point. Now, let that sink in. Let that generational lineage kind of track back even further. So, your mom, your grandma, and your great grandmother were one. That's how trauma really gets passed on. That's how stress gets passed on. That's how preferences get passed on. And you can start to see how even if we have a parent or a caregiver who grew up in a toxic or dysfunctional environment, because everything is always done so routinely and we love what is familiar to us. We love what is familiar to us, by the way. If you've ever tried to give a kid like a different cup or a different fork, different food, the reason that they gravitate toward the same things over and over is because that's what's familiar to them. And you have to kind of think, like for a kid, you have to take yourself back to what that experience is like. When you're a kid, there is so much about the world that you don't know, that you haven't experienced. And because it's all new and you haven't fully figured out like who to trust, how to recover, all of that, there's a lot more fear. There's a lot more excitement as well about the world. And your parents or your caregivers, whoever's around you as a kid, when they're watching you explore the world for the first time, if they're putting their fears, their worldview on you, that's even further the trauma that you're picking up, the behaviors, the stressors, all of it. Now, each and every single one of us could probably sit down for hours and share things that our parents or caregivers did that we didn't appreciate, didn't like, didn't enjoy, all of it. Even if you grew up in an abusive household, the hard truth, the hard reality is that each and every single one of us selected our parents for a specific reason. And that means that we all have these soul contracts. And before we ever incarnated to this planet, we made an agreement with our parents, at least three of us, right? Mom, dad, baby. So there could be more if you're a twin or whatever. But we made an agreement as to where and when we would incarnate and what that experience would be like, so that we could wake up and remember our purpose, remember why we were here. Now, when you grew up in a toxic or abusive or dysfunctional environment, it's really hard to wrap your head around the idea that you would have asked for something like this, especially since the pain and the trauma may be something that you find debilitating to this day. And I'm not saying that it's your fault. I'm not saying that you deserved to be treated by that by any means. But what I am saying is that I do believe that each and every one of us came to this earth with a specific purpose. And some of us asked to be placed in these harsher environments, in these really dark, muddy, clouded, cobweb infested environments, so that we could become this illumination, this light, this hope, this healing, so that we could show others it's possible, so that we could be reminded of our own power, of our own worth, of our own deserving of love, of happiness, of abundance, of experiencing all of the different senses and everything that this planet has to offer. I think that the best way to figure out if you're letting the victim mindset swallow you is to ask yourself a couple of questions. Like, if I view myself as a victim, and maybe then a rescuer, how am I talking about my abuser? And I'll just share in my own case, when I identified as a victim, I started naming, sharing what my abuser had done, but I still felt so protective that I wasn't necessarily clearly communicating everything. And the other part that I wasn't necessarily taking into account was that people just don't care. External people just don't care. If it doesn't affect them, if it doesn't bother them, they're not really nosy, they just don't care. So essentially, as a victim, then I started to identify as a rescuer, because as a victim, I didn't feel like I had the support and the external validation that I expected a victim to have. So because I moved myself into this rescuer kind of mode or mentality, I really let go of even more shame and fear and guilt and obligation over protecting people. And I really started to share things that were happening. And I still truthfully didn't share everything. I still didn't fully go into every detail or anything like that. But in hindsight, I was acting as the abuser because I was sharing things, telling stories about people to people who didn't know them, who didn't care, who weren't there. And as soon as you invite C into an A-B conversation, you're creating a triangulation, you're creating a mess. The reason why it's so important to have direct communication, to speak openly and honestly and be true with how you're feeling, even if it scares you to share that. Because if you're being true and authentic with yourself, then you can always sleep well or hold yourself high, knowing that you stood up for yourself or that you were honest about what your needs were. And this is where I really got stuck. And I hope that this helps you. But there is nobody who is responsible for you other than you. There is nobody who will love you like you, truthfully. Even though I absolutely love my husband and I would do like anything for him, I would do anything for my puppy. There are other people that I would do anything for these people because I love them so much. At the same time, there's always going to be a line where I can't do that for you. You have to walk that yourself. I can't do that for you. You have to do that yourself. If you want this, you're going to have to do this yourself. Meaning that each and every single one of us, we can have support from the outside. We can have people who validate us. We can have people who cheer us on. We can have people who help carry us when our burden really starts to feel too heavy, and they can remind us of our tools and how we can stand and how we can walk or how we can dance across that finish line. But the thing is that we have to be the ones who do it ourselves. If we are not the ones who carry ourselves across the finish line, if we are not the ones who are bound and determined to heal, to get better, to release those feelings of fear, of shame, of guilt, of obligation, of anger, of jealousy, all of it, we're going to get stuck. And that's because that victim, rescuer, abuser mindset forms a triangle, and a triangle energetically is incredibly powerful because a triangle can spin. And once the energy starts spinning around you, what happens? Where your focus goes, energy flows. So this means that your energy is going to, the energy around you is going to start looking for evidence to prove you correct. That yes, you do live in this really chaotic environment. And yes, you have all of these reasons to fear shame and guilt and obligation and fear and anger and jealousy and blah, 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 everything else. But I want you to remember in those moments when density starts to feel overwhelming, that your density is an illusion. It's controlled by the ego. And remember, the ego is the first one to say, I fucking knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. But then the ego is also the first one to be like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. See what I mean? So allow yourself to relax. Allow yourself to remember who you are by just saying 2 words, I am. Now you can always fill in the blank after the I am, but even just saying I am is incredibly powerful, because I am is how God or source or whatever you want to call it identifies. Now we even look at the word spelling. What you say, what you think about yourself, about others, what you consume, like not just food wise, but what are you consuming media wise, music wise, book wise? Who are you hanging out with? All of that is like your spiritual diet. So if you're constantly around people who are feeling positive and uplifted and are healing and are always telling you about the latest miracle that happened to them, you're going to have a completely different mindset. You're going to have a completely different perception of the world than if you're hanging out with somebody who's like, I can't believe it happened again. Like the worst day. I thought yesterday was bad. Today's even worse. We've all met those people. I was that person for a little bit, but you can get out of that spiral, but it's going to take a step forward. It's going to take a step forward in saying, wow, I'm really glad I did that. I'm really glad that I listened to my intuition or to my gut or to my higher self. I'm really glad that I took that time to breathe, to remind myself that I am loved, that I am worthy, that I am enough just by existing. Because remember, your inner child is still alive and well, each and every single one of us. You don't have to be traumatized or horribly abused to have inner child work or to really even feel hurt or pain. Every single one of us has been hurt. Every single one of us has experienced something that changed us on a deep level or shocked us into feeling like there was a version of us that could no longer exist. So it's kind of like this death and rebirth cycle. We're all kind of on it. And this year, 2022, is really a year of death and rebirth. March 2022 is that in a month as well. I've kind of been going through the ringer of this death and rebirth cycle the last few months. And every time I think that I've reached this new layer of healing, I go right back in and I have more shadow work or more healing or journaling or whatever to do. And I want to share with you that even though I've had these energetic astrology forecasts and I have it down to the month, and I can see, even though I don't have like text necessarily on what is going to happen on a day by day basis, I have these images, and I can kind of figure out based on how the image overlays on the map what are going to be some of the hotter days of the month, what are going to be some of the themes that we're experiencing. And in January, we kind of went through this motion of like, it was like this big gong went off, knocked me on my ass. But the energy after knocking us out really asked us, like, are you glad that you did that? Or do you wish that you would have done that? And because I have been working so much on my spiritual journey and so much on healing, I've really leaned into gratitude and finding the thing to be thankful for, even in all the chaos, even in all of the mess. So in January, I really took time to sit with the things that made me feel like myself, that really made me feel thankful and appreciative of all the abundant blessings around me. And in truth, that was really kind of difficult because the last like 6 months or so, my husband and I have not had a kitchen, and not having the ability to get like water from the tap, or for us, like Kangen water, has been extremely hard. And I had to really work through a lot of feelings of panic and fear, like regarding what was going to happen to me once I stopped drinking Kangen water. Like I was so scared what was going to happen to my brain fog and what was going to happen to my body inflammation and like everything about that. Like I was just so scared. And even with food, like it wasn't just the nutritional aspect, it was also like, how are we going to be able to afford like not having a kitchen? Like it was just all of these layers of fear that I've had to work through. And it really hasn't let up by any means, but I think that one of the most powerful conversations that I ever had about gratitude came from a beautiful woman named Roddy, and I can't pronounce her last name. I'm gonna try, but Roddy Shetty. I'm gonna skip over her maiden name. Sorry, Roddy. But she was having a conversation the other day all about gratitude, and she was sharing how a friend of her husband, because if you're not familiar with Roddy, you might be familiar with her husband. Her husband is Jay Shetty. And if you're not familiar with Jay Shetty's work, but maybe you've seen him, he has like a deal with like the Calm app, and he's always kind of talking about positivity and affirmations. But Jay Shetty actually studied or was studying to become a Buddhist monk when he met Roddy. So he kind of exited out of that life goal. See, it's just another way of death and rebirth, right? But so Jay and Roddy live in LA, and they had a Buddhist monk friend of theirs come stay with them for a little bit. And the friend shared with Roddy that every single day he wakes up, and from the moment he wakes up, he starts just going off, naming all these things that he's grateful for. And it really starts off with that first breath in the morning. And if you're somebody who's having a hard time right now, or if you're somebody who is struggling to figure out what to be grateful for or how to be grateful during times of chaos or great pain, I think this might actually really resonate with you. And that's because each and every single one of us expects that when we go to bed that we wake up in the morning, but that's not the case for everyone. So when you wake up in the morning and you realize or recognize that you are awake, that is a gift in itself that we should be grateful for every single day. Thank you for that breath. Because remember, without that breath, you're just a physical body being of like skin and bones. It's your breath, it's your spirit that makes your body unique to you. And it's your personality and the way that you love and the way that you energetically carry yourself that makes you unique and special and so lovable. So take that first breath in and allow yourself to soak in that blessing that you are needed for at least one more day, that your magic is so necessary for the success of this planet for at least one more day. And then I know in my case, when I wake up in the morning and I take that first breath, there are two other living beings in that bed with me. And I am so grateful when those living beings take that breath. Because that's the other thing. If you're sharing a bed and your partner doesn't wake up, or you have a beloved pet that doesn't wake up, that's traumatic, that's painful. So take that blessing, acknowledge that blessing that you get one more day together at least, and take that time and use it. So continue to appreciate all of the blessings. I know in my case, it's after realizing or recognizing everyone is alive and well, I start going into, wow, thank you for this really amazingly comfortable bed that held all of us last night. And this bed is in this house that we bought that we're going to raise our family in together. That is just something to be grateful for on its own. We have food, we have water, we have, a toilet. We don't have a kitchen right now, but when we have a kitchen, we're going to have access to running water in the kitchen. We're going to be able to make our own food. We have, the ability to plant a garden. Pretty soon I'm going to be able to be sharing all of my blessings of all of the fruits and the vegetables and the herbs. And so that's really what I mean. Can you take the time to really be appreciative for everything in your life? And if you can, then when density throws a curveball at you, you're able to kind of take a moment and look at it as a veil of illusion. You're able to smile and kind of recognize that it was density's attempt to kind of flare up your ego, to make you feel like if something externally happened that threatened your internal safety, your internal ability to be enough, your internal ability to be worthy of love, of success, of money, of whatever it is that you desire. So in that sense, it's really important when the tough things happen that you're able to take that breath and remind yourself, I am at peace with myself. I am at peace with the world. And I'm telling you this, by the way, as somebody who, like I said, density has been having its fucking way with me. Not only do we not have a kitchen, but we've had like broken windows, we've had broken toilets not working. We've had, what else? We had like a package stolen, we had our Ring doorbell stolen, like we've had security things. And in all of that, I've had a choice. I could just fully surrender to all of the hate, to all of the chaos, to all of the violence, and I could let it change me. Or I can smile at that illusion. And this is, by the way, of course, after I like have a little reaction because I'm human. But allow yourself, catch yourself, and allow yourself to reframe it. How like sad it must be that this person who stole my package and my Ring doorbell, that's what their life is all about. Like lying, stealing, hiding. I can't imagine that kind of existence. It sounds terrible, truthfully. And if that mailbox that I bought that this person stole like makes their day, awesome, because I didn't think that it would. But on the other end, if I just focus on not feeling safe and secure because of what this one person did, then I'm not allowing myself to soak in all of the positive things that happened as well. All of the times that people did show up and support me, all of the times that people did go the extra mile. Like the person who is sending out another mailbox at a very, very, very generous discounted rate, like 75% off. So allow yourself to find the humanity, allow yourself to come back to you. One way that I've been doing this a lot is by really focusing on my heart space. So figuring out where that space is in you, letting it kind of visualize, let it sink in. And then when you take a deep breath, when you take a conscious deep breath, I should say, really focus on that heart space. Allow yourself to breathe in and out of your heart space. And just keep going with those mantras that the world is safe, that my life is full and beautiful, and each day gets better and better. And smile. Because when we smile, it actually does a lot more than you realize. It sends a signal to our body that lets us know that we're safe, that we're comfortable. And because of the alignment of everything in our body, when we're smiling and feeling confident and happy and safe and enough and worthy, is that it really starts to send out these messages into our auras. And so instead of spinning in this victim mentality, what we're spinning in is this energy of abundance, of love, of peace, of joy. And like attracts like. So where your focus goes, that energy flows. And when you're in this space that everything is working out, best case scenario, that everything is working out as it should be, that the universe has my back and the universe is constantly and consistently supporting me, I promise you're going to have a completely different outcome. But first, you must surrender. And to surrender is to basically just remember, I am. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I am healing. I am.